Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His blue skin glowed softly under the ship's lights, and his forearms moved with practiced grace as he reviewed the daily reports. The Kethran Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and Vextar was proud to be part of that legacy. The bridge was a marvel of clean design. White surfaces gleamed under soft lighting, and holographic displays showed information from across the fleet. Everything was perfect, organized, and efficient. This was how war should be fought, with intelligence, technology, and minimal loss of life. "Admiral," called his communications officer, Zilneth, "we have received new orders from High Command." Vexitar turned his attention to the young officer. "What does the Empire require of us today?" "Long-range sensors have detected an unknown vessel in the Outer Rim, sir. It appears to be from a species we have never encountered before. High Command wants us to investigate and, if necessary, bring them into the Empire." The Admiral nodded slowly. This was routine work. In his 40 years of service, he had encountered dozens of new species. The process was always the same. First, they would approach with overwhelming force. The new species would see the futility of resistance and surrender. Then came negotiations, followed by peaceful integration into the Empire. Sometimes there was a brief skirmish, but it never lasted long. "Very well," Vextar said. "Plot a course for the coordinates. Assemble the Third Fleet in standard intimidation formation." The Third Fleet was impressive by any measure. 36 ships of various classes, each one a masterpiece of Kethran engineering. The vessels were sleek and elegant, with smooth curves that cut through space like silver knives. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields that could deflect most known weapons, and their plasma cannons could disable enemy ships without destroying them completely. Vextar's flagship, the Divine Order, led the formation. It was 2 kilometers long and equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Its AI systems could target multiple enemies simultaneously, and its defensive systems had never been breached in combat. As the fleet moved through hyperspace, Vextar thought about the species they had encountered before. The Zephyrite were beings made of living crystal, who fought with energy weapons. When faced with Kethran technology, they had surrendered within hours. The Nexari were insect-like creatures with a hive mind. They had tried to resist but gave up after losing just 3 ships. The Thalans were amphibious beings who preferred negotiation to fighting. They had joined the Empire willingly after seeing a demonstration of Kethran power. Each species had its own way of fighting, but they all followed the same basic rules. War was about achieving goals with minimal casualties. When outmatched, a rational species would surrender to preserve lives. When victorious, they would accept tribute and move on. This was the natural order of things. "Admiral," the navigation officer announced, "we are approaching the target coordinates." "Excellent. Drop us out of hyperspace in standard formation. I want our guests to see exactly what they're dealing with." The fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect order. Each ship took its assigned position, creating an impressive display of military might. The unknown vessel was immediately visible on their screens, a dark, angular shape that looked nothing like any ship they had seen before. "Interesting design," commented Vextar's science officer, Kyle Dunn. "It appears to be made of metal alloys rather than the bioorganic materials most species prefer. Very primitive looking, but large, perhaps 2.5 kilometers in length." Vextar studied the vessel through his tactical display. It was indeed primitive looking, with sharp edges and what appeared to be weapon mounts covering its hull. The design was purely functional, with no attempt at elegance or beauty. It reminded him of the crude warships some species built during their early spacefaring days. "Power signatures?" he asked. "Unusual, sir. The readings don't match any known technology. The vessel appears to be running on some form of nuclear reaction, which is quite outdated. However, the energy output is surprisingly high for such a primitive system. Weapons? Multiple systems, sir, but we cannot identify their exact nature. The ship appears heavily armed, but with technology we don't recognize." Vextar was intrigued rather than concerned. Unknown technology was always interesting, but no single ship could pose a threat to an entire fleet. "Open communication channels. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The communications officer worked at his station for a moment. "Channel open, Admiral." Vextar straightened his uniform and activated the transmission. His image would appear on screens throughout the unknown vessel, showing them exactly who they were dealing with. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Vextar of the Kethrin Imperial Navy. You have entered Kethrin territory without permission. I require you to submit to inspection and prepare for escort to the nearest processing station. The message was standard, delivered in the galactic common language that most spacefaring species understood. It was firm but not hostile, giving the newcomers a chance to comply peacefully. Minutes passed with no response. This was unusual but not unheard of. Some species needed time to translate or to consult with their leadership. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we are receiving a response." On screen, the viewing window shifted to show the interior of the unknown ship's bridge. Vextar was surprised by what he saw. The bridge was cramped and utilitarian, with exposed metal surfaces and harsh lighting. Banks of primitive screens showed information and symbols he didn't recognize. And standing in the center of it all was the strangest being he had ever encountered. The creature was bipedal and roughly the same height as a Kethrin, but that was where the similarities ended. Its skin was pale and smooth, with no natural armor or protective features. Its head had long black hair and two small eyes that seemed to burn with intelligence. It wore what appeared to be a military uniform of dark blue fabric, decorated with symbols of rank. When it spoke, its voice was deep and controlled, but there was something underlying it that made Vextar uncomfortable. It was like listening to a predator trying to sound civilized. "This is Captain Lee Taeho of the Terran Federation Navy vessel Soul's Vengeance. We are passing through this system under Articles of Free Navigation. We have no hostile intentions, but we will defend ourselves if threatened." Vextar blinked in surprise. This human seemed to think it could dictate terms while surrounded by 36 warships. The response showed either incredible bravery or dangerous stupidity. Looking at the primitive ship and its strange crew, Vextar decided it was probably stupidity. Captain Lee Taeho studied the alien ships surrounding his vessel. 36 sleek ships in perfect formation, each one clearly designed for war. Their hulls gleamed with some kind of energy shielding, and he could see weapon ports along their sides. These aliens knew how to make an impressive display. "Sora," he called to his navigation officer. "What do you make of their formation?" Chief Navigator Kim Sora looked up from her console. "Standard intimidation pattern, Captain. They're trying to look scary without actually being threatening. Classic opening move for first contact situations." Lee nodded. He had seen similar tactics during the war with the hegemony. Surround the enemy, make them feel helpless, then demand surrender. It was an old trick and sometimes it worked. But these aliens clearly didn't understand who they were dealing with. The bridge of the Soul's Vengeance was nothing like the alien ship they could see on their screens. Where the alien bridge was pristine and elegant, the human ship was built for function over form. Thick metal plates covered every surface, and redundant systems ensured the ship could keep fighting even with heavy damage. The crew wore practical uniforms designed for combat, not ceremonial dress. "Captain," called Communications Officer Park Dong-hyun, "we're receiving another transmission from the alien commander." "Put it through." The alien appeared on the main screen again. Its blue skin seemed to glow under its ship's lighting, and its four arms moved in what might have been gestures of authority. When it spoke, its voice carried the tone of someone used to being obeyed. "Captain Lee, I believe you misunderstand your situation. You are alone and surrounded. My fleet consists of 36 ships of the line, each more than capable of destroying your vessel. I am offering you the chance to surrender peacefully. This is how civilized species conduct themselves." Lee almost smiled. The alien thought it was being generous by offering surrender terms. It had no idea that humans didn't surrender, not when they could still fight. "I understand perfectly," Lee replied calmly. "You've surrounded my ship and are making threats. In human space, we call that an act of piracy. I suggest you reconsider your position." On the alien bridge, Admiral Vextar stared at the human in disbelief. Was this creature actually refusing to surrender? Did it not understand mathematics? One ship against 36 was not a battle. It was suicide. "Perhaps you need a demonstration," Vextar said coldly. He gestured to his weapons officer. "Fire warning shots across their bow. Maybe that will help them think more clearly." 3 plasma bolts streaked past the Soul's Vengeance, close enough to light up the hull with energy discharge. It was a standard intimidation tactic used throughout the galaxy. Most species would see the display of superior firepower and immediately signal surrender. The human response was not what Vextar expected. Alarms began wailing throughout the Soul's Vengeance as red lights flashed on every console. Captain Lee's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, and his tone had changed completely. Where before he had been diplomatic, now he sounded like death itself. All hands, general quarters. This is not a drill. Unknown hostiles have fired on our vessel. All personnel to battle stations. Prepare for combat operations. The bridge transformed around him. Blast shields slammed down over the windows, and additional displays came online showing weapon status, damage control teams, and tactical information. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing exactly what to do. Sora, evasive maneuvers pattern alpha. Get us some fighting room. Icer, pattern alpha. Weapons officer Minjung, power up all systems. Target their command ship first. Lieutenant Commander Seo Minjung's fingers flew over her controls. All weapons hot, Captain. We have targeting solutions on 34 vessels. The other 2 are blocked by their own ships. Excellent. On my command, fire everything we have. Vextar watched in growing alarm as the human ship suddenly came alive. What had appeared to be decorative features along the hull were sliding open to reveal weapon ports. Dozens of them. Energy readings from the vessel spiked dramatically as systems he hadn't even detected came online. Admiral, his science officer called out, the human ship is powering weapon systems we didn't know existed. Energy output is increasing beyond anything we've recorded. That's impossible. Their technology is primitive. Sir, I'm detecting multiple nuclear reactors coming online as well as some form of magnetic acceleration system. The weapon signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Vextar felt the first stirring of unease. In his experience, unknown weapons were usually primitive weapons, but the energy readings didn't match that assumption. Communications, open a channel. Let me speak to their captain again. The human captain appeared on screen, and Vextar was shocked by the change in his appearance. Where before Captain Lee had seemed calm and diplomatic, now his eyes burned with something that made the Catherine Admiral deeply uncomfortable. This was not the look of someone preparing to surrender. Captain Lee, you have powered weapon systems. This is an act of aggression. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. The human's response chilled Vextar to his core. Admiral, you fired on my ship. In human law, that's an act of war. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces, or I will consider you a hostile threat to be eliminated. You cannot be serious. You are outnumbered 36-1. Captain Lee's smile was the most terrifying thing Vextar had ever seen. Admiral, you clearly don't understand humans. We don't count the odds when our ship is threatened. We count the targets. The transmission ended, leaving Vextar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew looked confused and concerned. No species had ever responded to overwhelming force this way. It was irrational, suicidal, and completely against every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral, his tactical officer called out. The human vessel is moving to attack position. They appear to be targeting our formation center. Vextar couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans were actually going to fight. One primitive ship against his entire fleet. It was madness. All ships, battle stations. Prepare to disable the human vessel. Try to keep casualties to a minimum. I want to study these creatures and understand what makes them so irrational. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human ship. It's not directed at us. They seem to be broadcasting to their own crew. Put it through. Captain Lee's voice filled the Catherine Bridge, and his words sent a chill through every alien who heard them. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage a superior force that thinks humans will roll over and die quietly. They're about to learn why that was a mistake. We are the children of Earth where everything tried to kill us and we killed it back. We are the descendants of warriors who never learned to quit. Today we show these aliens what happens when they threaten a human ship. The transmission ended, but the captain's final words echoed in Vextar's mind. Remember, crew, they might outnumber us, but we outfight them. Let's send these bastards to hell. For the first time in his 40-year military career, Admiral Vextar felt afraid. The first salvo from Soul's Vengeance shattered every assumption the Catherine Empire had about warfare, where civilized species used precision weapons, designed to disable enemy ships with minimal casualties. The humans opened fire with weapons built for one purpose: complete destruction. Railgun batteries launched tungsten rods at incredible speeds, punching through Catherine energy shields like they were made of paper. The impact of each projectile sent shockwaves through the alien vessels, crushing internal systems and killing crew members instantly. Admiral Vexitar watched in horror as 3 of his ships simply ceased to exist. The railgun strikes had torn through their hulls so violently that the vessels broke apart in clouds of debris and escaping atmosphere. There had been no warning, no chance to surrender, no opportunity for the crews to evacuate. One moment the ships were there, the next they were scattered wreckage drifting in space. Impossible, he whispered, staring at his tactical display. No single ship has that much firepower. But the humans were just getting started. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked out from the Soul's Vengeance, weaving between Kethrin ships with guidance systems that seemed to predict their targets' movements. When the warheads detonated, they created balls of nuclear fire that consumed everything within their radius. Kethrin shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, provided no protection against the raw destructive force of fusion explosions. Lieutenant Commander Park Jimin coordinated the weapon systems with the cold efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Her console showed targeting data for every enemy ship, and she selected targets based on tactical value rather than mercy. Captain, enemy formation is breaking apart. Recommend focusing fire on their larger vessels. Captain Lee nodded grimly. Agreed. Take out their command ships first. Let's cut the head off this snake. Aye, sir. Targeting their flagship now. The Soul's Vengeance turned its attention to Vextar's command ship, the Divine Order. A full spread of missiles and railgun rounds converged on the Kethrin flagship, overwhelming its defenses through sheer volume of fire. The ship's elegant hull, designed for intimidation and ceremony, cracked under the assault like an eggshell. But what truly horrified the Kethrins was not just the weapons themselves, it was the human approach to using them. Where other species fought to achieve quick victory with minimal loss of life, the humans fought as if the survival of their entire species depended on winning this single battle. They accepted damage that would cause any rational crew to surrender, and they kept fighting when any sane commander would retreat. When railgun rounds tore through the Soul's Vengeance's armor, the crew simply rerouted systems and kept fighting. When missiles breached the hull and vented atmosphere, damage control teams sealed the breaches and continued their duties. The ship was designed to keep fighting even while dying, and its crew had the same philosophy. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Damage Control Officer Chang Woo-jin. We've lost pressure in sections 12 through 15. Seal it off and keep fighting, Captain Lee replied without hesitation. How are our weapons? All systems operational, sir. Minor damage to Railgun Battery 3, but we can compensate. The Kethrins had never encountered a species that treated their own lives so casually in pursuit of victory. When Admiral Vextar ordered boarding pods launched at the human vessel, he expected to find a crew ready to negotiate surrender once they realized their ship was being overrun. Instead, the boarding parties encountered something that would haunt Kethrin military doctrine for generations to come. Sergeant Major Choi, Hyun-woo met the first boarding pod with a squad of human Marines armed with weapons that seemed designed to cause maximum psychological trauma. Where Kethrin weapons fired clean energy beams that killed quickly and cleanly, human weapons used chemical propellants to fire metal projectiles that tore through flesh and bone with devastating effect. Contact, contact, Choi barked into his communication system. Hostile boarders in Section 4, moving to engage. The Kethrin soldiers who emerged from their boarding pod expected to find frightened crew members hiding behind improvised barricades. Instead, they found professional killers who had been fighting wars for their entire lives. The humans didn't just defend their ship, they hunted the invaders through the corridors like predators stalking prey. No prisoners, Choi ordered his squad as they advanced through the smoke-filled corridor. These aliens want to take our ship? Let's show them the price. The fighting inside the Soul's Vengeance was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The humans used every advantage they could find. Superior knowledge of their own ship's layout, weapons designed for close combat, and a willingness to use tactics that horrified their enemies. They set ambushes in narrow corridors, used explosive charges to collapse sections on top of boarding parties, and fought hand-to-hand when their ammunition ran out. Private Yoon Jae-sung found himself face-to-face with a Kethrin soldier in the ship's armory. The alien was larger and stronger, with natural armor plating and forearms that could wield multiple weapons. By every logical measure, the human should have been outmatched. Instead, Yoon grabbed a maintenance tool and used it to cave in the alien's skull with a ferocity that shocked even his fellow Marines. When asked about it later, he simply said, "It was threatening my ship." Outside, the space battle continued to rage with an intensity that defied comprehension. The Soul's vengeance was heavily outnumbered, but the humans fought with such savage efficiency that the odds seemed irrelevant. Every weapon system on the ship had been designed with one goal in mind: killing the enemy as quickly and thoroughly as possible. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The humans didn't try to disable enemy ships for capture. They obliterated them. They didn't offer quarter to surrendering vessels. They kept firing until nothing remained. They didn't retreat when damaged. They used their own ship as a weapon, ramming damaged Kethran vessels when they ran low on ammunition. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, voice shaking with terror. "We've lost 23 ships. The remaining vessels are requesting permission to withdraw." Vextar stared at the tactical display, unable to believe what he was seeing. His fleet, the pride of the Kethran Navy, was being destroyed by a single primitive vessel, crewed by beings who seemed to have no understanding of rational behavior. "Sir, the human ship is targeting us directly. They're locking weapons on our position." The divine order shook under a sustained barrage of railgun rounds and missile strikes. The ship's elegant design, so impressive during peaceful ceremonies, proved utterly inadequate for real combat. Hull plates cracked and split, sending deadly fragments flying through the corridors. "Damage report," Vextar shouted over the sound of alarms. "Major hull breaches on decks 4 through 8. We've lost main power and life support is failing. Sir, we need to abandon ship." Vextar looked at the main screen where Captain Lee's face appeared one final time. The human's expression was cold and merciless like death itself. "Admiral," the human said, "you fired on my ship. This is what happens when you threaten humans. Remember this lesson." The transmission ended, and another salvo of human weapons slammed into the divine order. The flagship that had served as a symbol of Kethran power for over a century died in nuclear fire, taking Admiral Vextar and most of his crew with it. Of the 36 ships that had surrounded the Soul's vengeance, only 7 managed to escape into hyperspace. Each was heavily damaged, their crews traumatized by an encounter with a form of warfare they had never imagined possible. As the survivors limped back to Kethran space, they carried with them a terrible realization. Everything their empire believed about war was wrong. Somewhere in the galaxy was a species that didn't fight for territory or resources or political advantage. They fought because they were very, very good at it. The emergency session of the Kethran High Command was unlike any meeting in the Empire's 3,000-year history. The surviving officers from Admiral Vextar's fleet sat in medical chairs, their wounds still healing, their minds still processing what they had witnessed. The holographic recordings of the battle played on repeat, but the High Command members struggled to believe what they were seeing. High Commander Zixtal paused the recording at the moment when the human ship opened fire. "Explain to me again how a single primitive vessel destroyed 29 ships of the line." Commander Kylenex, one of the few surviving ship captains, spoke with a voice that still trembled with shock. "Sir, they didn't fight like any species we've encountered. Their weapons were designed for complete destruction, not tactical victory. They showed no interest in capturing our ships or taking prisoners. They just killed everything." "That's irrational," protested Science Advisor Dixlin. "No species wastes resources that way. War is about achieving political goals, not senseless destruction." "Tell that to my crew," Kylenex replied bitterly. "The humans boarded my ship and I watched them fight our soldiers hand to hand. They used tools as weapons. They set traps. They fought like wild animals but with the intelligence of a military force. When I ordered surrender, they ignored me completely. They just kept killing until my ship was dead." The holographic display showed the Soul's vengeance taking damage that should have crippled any vessel. Hull breaches, system failures, fires spreading through multiple decks. But the ship kept fighting, kept moving, kept destroying Kethran vessels with methodical precision. "How is this possible?" Zixtal demanded. "Our intelligence reports say this Terran Federation is a new species. How can they be so advanced in warfare?" The answer came from Intelligence Director Milkas, who had spent weeks analyzing captured human transmissions and data fragments. "Sir, they're not new to warfare. According to their own records, humans have been fighting continuous wars for their entire recorded history. They've been at war for over 4,000 years. The room fell silent. 4,000 years of continuous warfare was unthinkable. Most species fought occasional conflicts that lasted months or years. Extended wars were rare, lasting perhaps decades at most. But 4 millennia of combat? That's impossible, Zixtal said flatly. No species can survive that long in a state of constant war. Milekas activated a new display showing human historical data. Sir, they haven't just survived it, they've evolved for it. Their entire civilization is built around the concept of warfare. They fight each other. They fight their environment. They fight artificial intelligences that try to destroy them. War isn't something they do, it's what they are. The display showed images from human history, primitive humans with stone weapons hunting creatures 10 times their size, ancient cities surrounded by massive walls, battlefields covered with the bodies of thousands of warriors, ships burning on alien worlds under foreign suns. Look at their weapons development, Milekas continued. They started with clubs and rocks, then developed spears, swords, and bows. They created gunpowder weapons, then automatic firearms, then nuclear weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Every advancement in their technology seems designed to kill more efficiently. Commander Kylenex leaned forward. Sir, during the battle I intercepted some of their internal communications. They have something they call rules of engagement, guidelines for how to conduct warfare. But these rules aren't about minimizing casualties or preserving resources. They're about maximizing damage to the enemy while protecting their own forces. Show me. The recording played audio from the Soul's Vengeance during the battle. Captain Lee's voice was calm and professional as he gave orders to his crew. Weapons free on all targets. No warning shots, no attempts to disable. These hostiles fired on our ship. Treat them as active combatants and eliminate them. Another voice, this one from their Marine sergeant. Rules of engagement are weapons free. No prisoners unless they surrender completely and pose no threat. Priority is ship security. Zixtal felt a chill run through his body. These humans didn't fight wars. They fought for survival every single time, as if losing meant the extinction of their entire species. What else do we know about them? He asked. Milekas brought up more data. Their most recent major conflict was with something called the hegemony. The war lasted 47 years and involved thousands of ships across dozens of star systems. The humans eventually won, but the cost was enormous.
Entire planets were left uninhabitable and billions died on both sides. How did it end?
The humans didn't accept surrender until they had completely destroyed the hegemony's ability to wage war. They hunted down every enemy ship, occupied every enemy world, and dismantled their opponent's entire civilization. When the war ended, the hegemony simply ceased to exist. The room was quiet as the implications sank in. This wasn't a species that fought limited wars for specific goals. These humans fought until their enemies were completely eliminated as a threat. Before the hegemony war, Milekas continued, they fought a conflict against artificial intelligences that had tried to exterminate all organic life. The humans turned the machine's own logic against them, then hunted down every single AI until none remained. Before that, they fought something called the Colonial Wars, and before that, they fought each other in conflicts that lasted centuries. Strategic Advisor Keelton spoke up from his position at the conference table. What you're describing isn't civilization. It's a species of professional killers. That's exactly what they are, Milekas confirmed. Every human citizen receives basic military training. Their civilian industries can be converted to weapons production within months. Their entire society is designed to support warfare on a scale we've never imagined. Zixtal studied the tactical analysis of the Soul's Vengeance. The ship was impressive not for its elegance or advanced technology, but for its brutal efficiency. Every system was designed with combat in mind. Redundant power systems meant it could keep fighting while damaged. Thick armor allowed it to absorb punishment that would destroy most vessels. Automated damage control systems could repair critical failures in minutes. This ship wasn't built for exploration or diplomacy, he realized. It's a pure instrument of war. Every human ship follows the same design philosophy, Milekas agreed. They don't build vessels for multiple purposes. They build warships for war, transport ships for logistics, and research vessels for gathering intelligence. Each type is optimized for its specific role. Commander Kylenex added his own observations. Sir, their crew coordination was unlike anything we've seen. When we boarded their ship, they responded instantly and with perfect teamwork. Every crew member knew exactly what to do, and they all seemed to have combat training. It wasn't just their military personnel. Their engineers fought like soldiers, and their medical staff carried weapons. The High Command was beginning to understand the scope of the threat they faced. This wasn't just a new species with advanced weapons. This was a civilization that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare. "What are our options?" Zixtal asked finally. Strategic advisor Kilton consulted his tactical computers. "We could attempt to avoid their territory entirely. Simply declare the region off limits and prevent future contact." "Unacceptable," Zixtal replied immediately. "The Kethrin Empire doesn't retreat from inferior species. Sir, with respect, they've proven they're not inferior. Not in warfare. Then we demonstrate our superiority through overwhelming force. Assemble the Grand Fleet, every ship, every weapon, every advantage we possess. We'll show these humans what real military power looks like." Intelligence Director Milkas looked uncomfortable. "Sir, I should warn you. The humans seem to get more dangerous when threatened. Their history shows that they fight hardest when facing extinction." Zixtal's forearms gestured dismissively. "Let them fight as hard as they want. When they see 300 ships of the line bearing down on them, even these savage humans will understand the futility of resistance." The meeting ended with orders to assemble the largest military force in Kethrin history. But as the commanders filed out, several of them wondered if they truly understood what they were preparing to face. In the depths of the intelligence archives, automated systems continued analyzing human data transmissions. The computers flagged one particular message that had been sent from the Soul's vengeance after the battle. It was addressed to something called Terran Command and contained a simple report. "First contact with unknown hostile species. Enemy utilized standard intimidation tactics followed by direct attack. Responded with standard combat protocols. Enemy neutralized. Recommend increased patrol activity in this sector." The message was signed by Captain Lee Taeho, and it was marked with a priority level that translated roughly as routine engagement. To the humans, the destruction of 29 Kethrin warships had been just another day at the office. The Grand Fleet of the Kethrin Empire was the most impressive military force ever assembled in galactic history. 300 vessels of various classes stretched across space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shields and ceremonial markings. Each ship represented the pinnacle of Kethrin engineering and thousands of years of military tradition. High Commander Zixtal stood on the bridge of the super dreadnought Imperial Glory, watching his fleet prepare for what he expected to be the final demonstration of Kethrin supremacy. The ship was 5 kilometers long, armed with the most advanced weapons in the Empire's arsenal, and protected by shields that had never been penetrated in combat. "Status report," he commanded. Fleet Coordinator Bilnax consulted his displays. "All ships report ready for combat operations. We have 50 dreadnoughts, 100 cruisers, 120 destroyers, and 30 support vessels. Total crew complement is approximately 2 million personnel." Zixtal nodded with satisfaction. The humans had destroyed 29 ships with a single vessel. Even accounting for their savage tactics and unusual weapons, they could not possibly stand against 300 ships. This would end their threat permanently. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "long-range sensors detect human vessels approaching our position." "How many?" 12 ships, sir. All appear to be the same class as the vessel that attacked Admiral Vextar's fleet." Zixtal almost laughed. 12 ships against 300. Even these insane humans couldn't believe they had a chance. Perhaps they were finally coming to their senses and approaching to negotiate surrender terms. Open communications when they're in range. I'll give them one opportunity to submit peacefully. The human fleet approached with steady confidence, showing no signs of hesitation or fear. Their ships moved in a tight formation that spoke of perfect coordination and long practice. As they drew closer, Zixtal could see that each vessel bore the scars of previous battles: hull patches, replaced armor sections, and weapon burns that had been repaired but not concealed. These ships had seen real combat, and they wore their battle damage like badges of honor. "Communications established." "Sir?" The main display showed the bridge of the lead human vessel. A female officer with short black hair and steel-gray eyes stared back at him. Her uniform was plain and functional, decorated only with symbols of rank and service ribbons that told of battles fought and won. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded ships in desperate situations and brought them home. "Kethrin Fleet, this is Admiral Nam Soo-jin of the Terran Federation Navy. You have assembled a military force in neutral space and are blocking a major shipping lane. You have 3 minutes to disperse and return to your own territory." Zixtal couldn't believe what he was hearing. This human admiral was giving him orders as if she commanded the superior force. Admiral Nam, I am High Commander Zixtal of the Kethran Imperial Navy. You are looking at 300 warships, the greatest military force ever assembled. I offer you one final chance to surrender peacefully. Your vessels will be preserved and your crews treated according to galactic conventions. The human admiral's response would become legend in military academies throughout human space. High Commander, you clearly don't understand who you're dealing with. We are the species that turned warfare into an art form. We are the children of Earth, where everything tried to kill us, so we learned to kill everything back. You have 2 minutes to withdraw, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy fears humans at war. The transmission ended, leaving Zixtal staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew looked shocked and confused. No species in galactic history had ever spoken to the Kethran Empire with such casual confidence. Sir, the tactical officer called out, the human ships are powering weapons and moving into attack formation. Zixtal watched the tactical display as 12 human vessels arranged themselves into a configuration he had never seen before. Instead of spreading out to present multiple targets, they moved closer together, creating overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. They're going to fight, he said in disbelief. 12 ships against 300, and they're actually going to fight. What happened next shattered every assumption the Kethran Empire held about warfare, tactics, and the nature of conflict itself. The human ships didn't fight as individual vessels trying to survive against overwhelming odds. They fought as a single organism, each ship covering the other's weaknesses while maximizing their collective firepower. When the Busan's Fury took heavy damage to its port side, it immediately moved to present its starboard weapons to the enemy while the Inchin's Wrath positioned itself to shield the damaged vessel. Captain Yoon Min Ho of the Busan's Fury coordinated with Captain Shin Ye-jin of the Inchin's Wrath through rapid data, links that allowed split-second tactical decisions. Ye-jin, I'm losing power to my main batteries. Can you cover my approach vector? Confirmed Min Ho. Moving to position now. Make your run count. The sacrifice of the Busan's Fury epitomized everything the Kethrans couldn't understand about human warfare. Captain Yoon deliberately exposed his ship to devastating enemy fire, accepting critical damage to position Captain Shin for a killing blow against 3 Kethran cruisers. Neither captain hesitated, neither questioned the decision, and neither considered retreat. The Kethran fleet discovered that human weapons were designed not just for war, but for the kind of total war that left nothing standing. Their nuclear missiles didn't simply disable enemy ships. They vaporized them completely. Their railgun systems didn't punch neat holes through hulls. They tore vessels apart at the molecular level. When the Daegu's Vengeance took a direct hit that destroyed its main reactor, Captain Bang Tae-young didn't order abandon ship. Instead, he ordered ramming speed and aimed his dying vessel at the largest concentration of enemy ships. The resulting collision and explosion took out 6 Kethran vessels and damaged a dozen more. This is Daegu's Vengeance, Captain Bang transmitted to the rest of the fleet as his ship began its final run. Reactor critical, life support failing. Going to ramming speed. It's been an honor serving with you all. The response from Admiral Nam was immediate and matter-of-fact. Confirmed, Daegu. Good hunting. See you on the other side. The Kethrans watched in horror as the humans turned their own damaged ships into guided weapons. It wasn't just tactically effective, and it was psychologically devastating. What kind of species used their own vessels as ammunition? Admiral Nam coordinated the battle from her flagship, the Soul's Pride, with the cold efficiency of someone who had fought desperate battles before and understood that victory required sacrifice. When tactical displays showed Kethran reinforcements moving to surround her fleet, she didn't retreat or call for help. Instead, she ordered her ships to advance directly into the enemy formation. All ships, this is Admiral Nam. The enemy thinks they can overwhelm us with numbers. Let's show them why that's a mistake. Execute Battle Plan Omega. Take the fight to them. Battle Plan Omega was a human tactical doctrine that had been developed during the Hegemony War. Instead of trying to fight defensively against superior numbers, human ships would charge directly into enemy formations, using their superior close-range firepower and their crew's willingness to accept casualties to break apart organized resistance. The Catherine fleet, designed for precise long-range engagements, found itself in a brutal close-quarters battle where their numerical advantage became a liability. Human ships moved through their formation like sharks, targeting command vessels and support ships while ignoring damage to themselves. High Commander, Zixtal watched his carefully organized fleet dissolve into chaos as human vessels tore through his formations. His ships were individually superior to the human vessels, but they weren't designed for this kind of savage, close-range combat. When human ships rammed his vessels or detonated nuclear weapons at point-blank range, his advanced shields and armor provided little protection. Sir, we've lost over half our fleet. Remaining ships are requesting permission to withdraw. Zixtal stared at the tactical display, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The greatest military force in Catherine history was being destroyed by 12 ships crewed by beings who seemed to have no fear of death. How is this possible? His science officer provided the answer that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Sir, they're not fighting to win a battle. They're fighting to win a war. Every ship lost, every crew member killed, every sacrifice made. It's all calculated to achieve total victory. They're willing to lose everything as long as we lose more. The final moment of the battle came when Admiral Nam's flagship, badly damaged and running on emergency power, faced off against Zixtal's super dreadnought. The Imperial Glory was 10 times larger than the human ship, with weapons that could destroy a city and shields that had never been penetrated. Admiral Nam opened a final communication channel. High Commander, you wanted to see what humans do when threatened. This is what we do, we fight. We bleed, we die, but we never ever give up. Remember this day, Catherine. Remember that some species don't know how to lose. The Soul's Pride launched every weapon it had left at the Catherine flagship, then detonated its own reactor in a final act of defiance. The explosion tore through,